February 1945. Eastern Germany, a frozen orchard outside Küstrin on the Oder River. Dawn is a pale bruise above the snow-laden apple trees. The air smells of cordite and frostbitten bark. A young woman in a threadbare Wehrmacht greatcoat lies half-buried in a shallow sniper's scrape, her right leg twisted at an impossible angle, blood already black against the white ground. Her Mosin Nagant, captured from the Red Army 2 winters earlier, rests beside her like a sleeping animal. She's 19. Her name is lost to the wind, but the Americans who find her will remember the sound she makes when the first morphine needle slides home. Not a scream, not a curse, but a small, incredulous sob, as though pain itself has betrayed her expectations. This moment, almost too intimate for the scale of the war, would be repeated in dozens of villages and forests as the Western Allies pushed deeper into the Reich. Female snipers of the Wehrmacht and the Volkssturm auxiliary units, girls pulled from the Bund Deutscher Mädel, from factories and farms, issued rifles and told that every Soviet soldier they killed bought Germany another day, suddenly found themselves facing not the vengeful Slav they had been taught to fear, but young men from Iowa and Pennsylvania who knelt in the snow, cut away frozen uniform cloth, and pressed sulfa powder into wounds with the same calm they once used on wounded cattle back home. The German High Command had created these sniper units in desperation. By late 1944, the Red Army was exterminating entire German divisions on the Eastern Front. Hitler's order of 29 October 1944 authorized the arming of women between 17 and 30 for special defensive tasks. Training was brutal and brief. 10 days on the ranges at Altengrabo or Lieberose, then straight to the Oder or the Vistula. Official records list 2,864 women formally enrolled in sniper platoons by February 1945, though the real number was certainly higher. Their kill ratios were impressive. One Obergefreiter Josefa Kramer was credited with 43 confirmed kills before her capture near Frankfurt on the Oder. Propaganda portrayed them as ice-eyed Valkyries. In reality, most were half-starved teenagers who had never seen chocolate or nylon stockings, who wrote letters home asking for wool socks and begging their mothers not to worry. They expected hatred. Every newsreel, every leaflet, every frantic radio broadcast had promised that the Americans were gangsters and Jews who would rape and mutilate any German woman found with a weapon. They had been ordered to save the last bullet for themselves. Yet when the end came, it came gently. On 12 February 1945, near the village of Reitwein, 19-year-old Hannelore Becker was shot through both thighs while trying to crawl back to German lines. She laid in the snow for 6 hours, convinced that the Americans found her alive they would finish what the bullet started. Instead, Private First Class Anthony DeFranco of the 84th Infantry Division slid down into her position, offered her a cigarette she was too weak to smoke, and called for a medic. Corpsman Robert O'Connell arrived with the same field kit he had used at the Siegfried Line, the same quiet voice he used on GIs from Brooklyn. He cut away her blood-stiffened trousers, dusted the wounds with sulfa, and wrapped them in clean white bandages, while Hannelore stared at the small embroidered caduceus on his sleeve, as though it were a religious icon. When he injected morphine, she began to cry, not from pain any longer, but from the simple fact that no one was hitting her, no one was shouting, no one was treating her as anything other than a human being. O'Connell wrote in his diary that night, "She kept touching the bandage like she couldn't believe it was real." That white bandage became the recurring image, the quiet symbol that threaded its way through hundreds of similar encounters. It was clean, absurdly clean against the filth of the front. It came from a factory in Ohio that had never stopped running, from cotton fields worked by sharecroppers who would never see Germany. It carried no lectures, no ideology, only the unspoken promise that a nation wealthy enough to waste clean cloth on its enemies might, just might, be wealthy enough to end the war without turning every German into an animal. The transformation was swift and devastating to the worldview these girls had been fed. In the space of one bandage, the entire edifice of racial vengeance collapsed. A 20-year-old sniper named Ilse Weber, captured near Silo on 3 April 1945, later told her American interrogator through an interpreter, "We were told you would burn us alive. Instead, you gave us clean bandages and hot coffee. I do not understand your country." The interrogator, Captain Maurice Rose, son of Jewish immigrants, later killed by an SS patrol, wrote in his report, "Subject exhibited profound ideological disorientation. Recommend humane treatment continue." By the time Berlin fell, hundreds of these former snipers were walking with American crutches, eating from American field kitchens, watching American movies projected on the sides of ruined buildings. Many refused repatriation to the Soviet zone, terrified that the Red Army would exact the vengeance the Americans had withheld. Some married GIs. Others simply disappeared into the chaos of displaced persons camps, carrying nothing but the memory of a white bandage and the faint smell of sulfa powder. In the end, the war was not won by the thunder of artillery alone, but by small, almost invisible acts of abundance: a roll of gauze, a real cup of coffee, a corpsman's hand steady on a trembling German wrist. These were the moments when the myth of the master race cracked open, and something colder than defeat entered the soul of a generation: the realization that the enemy had not needed to become monsters in order to beat them. Somewhere today, an old woman in Wisconsin or Bavaria still keeps a yellowed strip of 1945 field dressing in a drawer. She takes it out sometimes, runs her finger along the faded red cross, and remembers the morning the world grew larger than propaganda. Freedom, she learned that day, is not the absence of chains. It is the presence of a clean white bandage, offered without triumph, without hate, by a nation rich enough to heal even those who tried to kill it. And in that small, wordless mercy, the Third Reich finally, irrevocably, lost the war.